dank day, which is highly appropriate for today's wild, because we're looking for creatures which live in dark, dank, sopping wet places. They're neither plants nor animals, but the mushrooms and fungi are one of the most successful life forms on Earth. And I'm going to find Sarah Watkinson, who's digging in the wood. Sarah Watkinson, you're a plant biologist, a botanist.
Yep.
From Oxford University, aren't you?
Yes, and I'm standing here in the rain.
You've come out in the rain, you're an ardent fungi fanatic. What have you found?
Well, what I've got here is a collection of wood-rotting fungi and also the bits of wood that they've rotted. Yes, that's not a very scenic object, is it?
Put that down. Okay.
Well, fungi are the things that make wood go away, and if there weren't fungi here, the wood would be here forever.
Okay, so when the wood dies, it's chopped up by the fungi.
When a tree dies, it's chopped up by the fungi, and they've got special ways of doing it. This bit of wood has been chopped up by a fungus, and it's only because of what fungi have done that I can do this now.
Right.
And that's a brown rot fungus, and what it's done is it's breaking down all the cellulose in the wood and taking away the strength of the wood.
Now we can't see the fungi in there, can we?
You can't see the fungi because the fungi do a very clever thing. They grow their mycelium into the wood, and then when they've rotted the wood, they take the mycelium away so that they don't lose any of their precious reserves.
Now what's the mycelium? Is that the body of the fungi?
The mycelium is the body of the fungus, and it's a network of microscopic filaments that tunnels vigorously through the wood, producing digestive enzymes. And fungi are different from us because we have our digestive enzymes inside our stomachs, but fungi put their digestive enzymes outside into the wood. So they do the digestion outside the fungus, and then they soak up all the nice nutrients that result.
So it's like lots of little hairs sort of seeping digestive enzyme into the atmosphere, to the outside.
Except that they're tubular hairs. Are hairs tubular? Perhaps they are.
But anyway, like tubes?
These are little tubes that grow at the tip. And the other interesting thing about these little tubes is you might wonder how they get through a tough thing like wood, but each little tube generates the most enormous force inside, several times the pressure of a car tyre. So they push these microscopic tubes into the wood.
Wow, so they're really sort of strong even though they're really small and we can't see them.
That's right. And the one we're looking at here has left behind all the lignin of the wood. That's the brown stuff in wood. But there are some other wood decay fungi, and I hope we might find some in a moment, that leave the wood white. And the reason they do that is they break down the brown stuff, and if any of you are chemists, they do it quite an interesting way, because the brown stuff in wood is a polyaromatic compound which nothing else can break down. But the fungi have a way of shooting oxidative free radicals at it and breaking it up in that way. So
wow.
There's a bit of science.
Fungi are really dynamic.
So look, here are some fungi. What do they do all this for?
Okay, here's some nice fungi. What kind of fungi is this? Do we know?
These are wood-rotting bracket fungi, and these aren't the actual fungi. These are just a product of the fungi. A lot of people think that the fungus is just what you see, but the most important part of the whole fungal organism is this network of tubes.
And you've taken the fungus off there. Is that all right?
Yes,
that's to show us, is it?
Yes, I'm not going to carry it out of the wood. I'm going to leave it behind, because this is a collection. The fungus has collected all its nitrogen into here, and if I take it away, I'll be depriving the local ecosystem. The spores are produced out of all these little tubes underneath. Can you see them? Tiny holes.
Yes, tiny fine filaments, aren't they, again?
And they're only producing these fruiting bodies very briefly at this time of year, which is a good time to disperse spores. So that's your bracket fungus, and
but you say that this isn't actually the actual fungi, that the fungi
in that fungus individual is inside this tree trunk, and that's why it's all being broken down. It's all soft because of the network of tubes, you see?
Oh yes, look, it's all coming away. Is this what we can see here? Are those the fungi?
That's fungal mycelium, that's right. And there are probably lots of different fungi in here.
Wow. So how many different types of fungi are there?
I always forget, but it's thousands of different... we estimate probably about 150 million different fungi in the world, but we probably only know about 7% of those.
150 million different types?
So we reckon, because people are discovering new fungi at such a rate, there are lots there that we don't know, but the ones that we do know amount to a few thousand.
Now, do fungi always eat the sort of dead and decaying bodies of other organisms, or the...
No, some of them are able to kill trees and live on the remains, and a number of people I know this year have suffered from honey fungus, which produces clusters of brown toadstools, and then if you trace back the toadstools to the tree that they're near, you'll see the bootlace structures that it produces on the tree, and those are the things that kill the tree, and the bootlaces invade the root, and they produce a toxin that kills the tree, and then the fungus swaps from being a parasite into being what we call a saprotroph and breaks down the dead tree, and then it'll grow out in all directions and infect the next tree. So it's a bad thing to have in your garden.
It's not a good thing to have in your garden.
Not a good thing.
And sometimes fungi live on us, don't they?
Afraid so. Yes.
Well, we're not going to go there.
We're not going to go there.
Okay, but we get some sort of... Well, what diseases do we get from fungi?
Well, at the moment I suffer from late summer asthma, and that's caused by spores which are always in the air, but especially late in summer, because they grow on dead wheat stalks. When it rains, they disperse their spores. There's a spore type in the air called didymella, and this is a little one that lots of people are allergic to, and it goes right into the deeper parts of the lung because it's quite small. So.
But it doesn't actually grow on us.
It doesn't grow on us,
just kind
it's
of
an allergen.
Irritates us.
That's
okay.
right. And then there are the ones that we grow between our toes and so on, and that's just bad luck. And then there are some nasties in other parts of the world.
Okay, we're going to go and find the fungi that breaks down the wood completely. Is that what we're looking for? Apparently we found another fungi right here, in fact, so we don't have to go anywhere. The cameraman was just telling us to walk out of shots, but in fact we found... Louis has found... Well done, Louis. Do you want to just mind out the way then? Good boy. Very good.
Louis has found exactly what we were looking for, which is a piece of wood decayed by white rot fungus. The bit of wood we were looking at just now was brown because the fungus left the lignin behind, but this one is one of the lignin decomposing fungi which has taken away the lignin.
Now this is the very hard bit of the wood, the lignin, isn't it?
Yes.
This is the bit that you were saying that nothing else can decompose.
It's a bit difficult to decompose, but the fungi can, and that's... So they've taken away all this hard brown stuff, which is the lignin, and they've just left this cellulose behind.
Might you get sort of generations of different fungi infecting wood, kind of one after another?
And you get lots of different fungi all at the same time.
Right.
In some parts of the world, they make use of this ability of fungi. What this fungus is a selective delignifier. It's taken away the lignin and left the cellulose. So we've got here a lump of pretty pure cellulose, and you know that animals like cows can live on cellulose because they're ruminants, and they have gut bacteria that decompose it. So in some parts of the world people use delignifying fungi to turn wood into food for cattle.
Now you were going to dig up some fungi that live under the ground that are really important, weren't you, for agriculture and for trees? And...
I was going to do exactly that, but I'm afraid because it's so wet they can hardly see what I'm doing, and I haven't been able to find any of those yet.
Should we have a look now? Should we have a look together?
Now.
Okay.
I don't think this is a very good place actually.
Where should we go?
We want quite a thick layer of beech leaf litter on the ground, and it's a bit thin here.
Okay.
I think we have to break off.
Search. Okay, off we go. Let's look this way. So this one is called...
This is a sulphur tuft. This is one of the very few British fungi which has actually got a common name. So it's got a Latin name, Hypholoma fasciculare, but it's so common that it's got a common name too. It's called the sulphur tuft.
Sulphur tuft, yellow.
And I'll show you with this one how you can identify a toadstool. Pick the whole thing, including the base. Look to see if it's got a ring or a vulva at the bottom, that's a sort of bag. And then look and see what colour the spores are. And if you want to do this, the best way to do it is to cut the top off with a knife, and then get a bit of clean paper, white paper, then leave the cap on it for a few hours with a glass over the top so it stays moist. And then when you lift the cap up, maybe the next morning you'll see a lovely pattern where the spores have fallen onto the paper and left to deposit. And if you do that with the sulphur tuft, you'll be particularly pleased because its spores are purple, and as they accumulate, you get this purple pile of spores.
So they're purple. Now, does it matter? I'm a bit worried about the toadstools. Does it matter that we're picking them like this?
I think with something really common like the sulphur tuft, it doesn't really much matter. You don't have to carry away enormous bagfuls.
You just take one. If you want to identify it, you might just take one.
Take one to identify by all means. Just don't come and clear the wood of them.
And ideally you want to take ones which perhaps are a bit going over a bit and are wide open so that they've had a chance to disperse their spores already.
I wouldn't worry too much about that because they're just small representatives of what's a very extensive underground mycelium.
Right.
So I think taking one doesn't do any harm.
All right. Okay,
it's not such a good idea to take a huge one because the toadstools are the repository of an enormous accumulation of nutrients that the fungus has made. So if you carry off a big one, you're possibly depriving the local habitat of some of its nutrients. But a little toadstool is fine. Right. Tell your children to wash their hands afterwards because just the odd toadstool is deadly poisonous, but most are fine.
Sarah, you've got something?
Yes. Yes.
What's that?
I'm standing under some beech trees here.
Taking
There are
up
some
your
pretty
stuff.
little toadstools just under your feet here.
Ah.
Look, purple ones there.
Oh, yes.
And just behind me there's a brown one that I've lost sight of because it's brown. But this one has got a nice name because it's purple. It's called Lacaria amethystia, and it's the amethyst toadstool. But it's not just a pretty face. Underground you can find fine beech roots, and they look like this. They've got thick ends, even though they're fine roots. And the reason the ends are thick is that the mycelium, the little tissues of this fungus, have grown round the roots, and they help them to take up nutrients from the soil. And in fact, one of the students in Oxford Forestry Institute has recently shown that the mycelium of these toadstools, making these ectomycorrhizal symbiotic associations with beech roots, actually help little beech trees to get established. Looks as though they're actually important.
Now that's very complicated. Let's have that again. So
Okay.
this is
This
the
is a
fungi.
beech root.
This
It's
is like the fruit.
That's like the fruit.
Okay, and down below the ground,
Down
we
below
have
the ground,
the body of this fungus.
There's a very fine beech root, and the fungus has made a tissue around the beech roots.
So it grows. So this, what we've actually got in your hand, is actually a beech tree root.
A beech tree root.
Okay, and the fungi lives with it.
It's as though it's got fungal socks on. The fungus makes a sort of tissue around the beech root, and so everything that the beech root absorbs has to go through the fungus. And the fungus pulls phosphate, you know, the plant fertilizer, nutrient, out of the soil. The fungus collects it, and then it feeds it through into the plant roots. And what it's doing now, there's a network just like this underneath all these dead leaves, and as the phosphate washes out of the dead leaves, these little rootlets are all ready with their fungal mantles to collect it up and feed it back into the tree again, instead of letting it leach away. It's this bit of dead wood here with these cords, and those are quite nice because this is produced by a fungus that just rots dead wood. It's nothing to do with living trees or anything, but the cords are quite interesting because as the fungus grows it makes these cords from one bit of dead wood to another, and they're like nutrient transport channels, and it carries along all its collected nitrogen and phosphate and stows them into the wood, and that helps it to rot the wood down.
So that's what we're looking at. These little, they're like
These little
bits of cotton or something.
bits of cotton, actually bundles of hundreds of different fungal microscopic threads, and they're little channels, rather like veins, that nutrients flow along.
And we can, and this wood is just crumbling away.
It's crumbling away
because of the fungus.
because the little veins have brought nitrogen along, and the nitrogen has been used to make enzymes, and the enzymes have broken down the lignin.
And without these fungi,
The wood would just lie about.
the wood would just, we would be up to our necks in dead wood everywhere.
Yes, especially in temperate regions like ours. In the tropics, termites would do this job,
Right.
but in our sort of temperate regions and further north, it's all down to fungi.
Fungi are our friends. And you've got some fantastic figures, haven't you, about the weight of fungi in the world? And
Several tons of fungi per person, if you take the overall weight of fungi and weight of people in the world, yes. But
So-
most of the fungi are invisible under our feet because they're all in the form of microscopic threads. Add them up and they make a substantial amount, but you don't see them.
thank you very much, Sarah Watkinson.
Thank you.
In the second half of Wild today, I'll be talking to Peter Creed about the fungi we can eat. Welcome back to Wild, where we're looking for mushrooms. Peter Creed leads fungal forays all over Oxfordshire. And Peter, you've brought me to this conifer plantation. Not the first place you think of to look for wildlife. Why are we here?
Well, we're here because we're in an area that's very got a lot of clay on the ground, and the clay keeps the moisture on the surface. Consequently, you get a lot of moss, as you can see here. And under these spruces, you get a certain number of species that you normally only find with spruce woods. So looking in plantations like this is pretty good for certain types of fungi.
It's quite a good place. You were getting very excited as we were walking in about the fungi. They're everywhere, aren't they? Shall we start off?
And they're particularly easy to see growing out of the moss. And this is quite often a very obvious sight in this wood. You get, well, this is a kind of a partial ring, but fairy rings of fungi, and you're standing within the ring there.
And this is because the spore lands in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah,
and then
the fungus
gradually
is in the middle there, and it grows out.
It grows out, and every year it throws up its mushrooms above the surface, and it gets a bit bigger when it throws up more, and so it goes on. Sometimes you get really enormous rings, don't you? It's fantastic. Okay, so what have we got here?
Well, we've got one of the ring-forming species in a family, in a genus called Clitocybe. They're called funnel caps.
Okay.
Have
a look at one.
Yeah, let's find one that's still quite funnel-like. There might be one here. Let's cut this one up. You can see there it's got a slight dip in the centre, and some of them can be quite goblet-shaped or funnel-shaped. The underside, you can see the gills there all run down onto the stem.
Right.
Which is quite a distinctive feature of this genus.
Now, are these the kinds of features we need to be looking at if we're going to find out about mushrooms, and particularly which ones we're going to eat?
Yes, it helps to get to know some families, which ones to avoid sometimes. It's just as important to know which ones to avoid as which ones to eat.
And this is one to avoid, isn't it?
It's a family to avoid.
Right.
There are some species in the family that are edible, but of course it's not usually worth taking that chance on have you got the right one.
Okay, so have we got any here that we can eat?
Yeah, we have. I mean, growing very close to it, in fact, is if we look over there, we can see a line of whitish, pinky white fungi. If you can see out there.
Should we go and have a look?
Yeah. And if you can just let's put that in a nice piece of light
Can
there.
we get some light on that?
Let's have a look at
Over here. See that? See that, Scott?
So instead of having gills,
Oh,
you
yes.
can see it's got lots and lots of spines which will just break off with your fingers. You can see they just flake off. Now the hedgehog fungus is well, its Latin name is Hydnum repandum, and it's a good edible species. It's one of the top 10 to 20 that you can eat.
Now, when you say it's edible, does this mean I can just sort of take a...
No. Some you can
Not a
eat
good
raw.
idea.
Some you can eat raw. This one is bitter if you
Right.
eat it raw. These are in a really sought-after family. It's in the Chanterelle family.
Right, okay, there they are there. And those at the Chanterelle, they're sort of quite sort of haute cuisine, aren't they? They're sort of what everyone
Yeah, lots of people
wants to
go for Chanterelle. This actually isn't Chanterelle, but it's in the same genus. It's a Pantherellis. This one's got a really long name. It's called Pantherellis infundibuliformis.
Oh, what a name!
Yeah.
Can I eat this? I'm longing to eat
You can
one.
try it raw. It's supposed to be, again, it's slightly bitter. Try it, but it'll be very wet.
Now, is it gonna? I mean, you have to look out for maggots, don't you,
Yeah,
in them a
that'll be
bit?
okay.
Be all right, will it? He promises me it'll be all right. And I try the top bit,
Try the leg,
the leg.
the stem. Yeah.
Try the leg. Well, that's quite nice.
Yeah.
It is a bit bitter actually. It's
Yeah.
got bitter aftertaste, but
Yeah.
it's quite almost nutty.
Yeah.
Now, are these the ones that you can buy in Tesco's?
Yeah. Yeah, they sell them in Tesco's. In fact, they sell the hedgehogs
Or
in
any
Tesco's.
other supermarket?
No, they sell hedgehogs in Tesco's as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
these ones for about £2 or £3 for a teeny packet.
So we can come out here and get them for free?
Yep.
And we're not damaging the plant?
Well,
The
the
fungus?
thing to do if you are going to come out and collect, you mustn't take the whole lot. You must just take enough that just the
a
amount that
few.
you need
Right.
for a meal. Don't go berserk and cut the whole lot down. Just take a few from a patch. If there's a large patch like this, take a few from there, a few from there, but leave the majority of them.
Are there any that are sort of doing badly because we have been taking them?
Well, I think most of the ones that people go for in this country are field mushrooms, and they're okay.
They're all right, are
yeah.
they? And what about other types of mushrooms that people might sort of use for other purposes other than culinary? Are they doing all right? Magic mushrooms
I
and
think
things?
so, yeah. I mean,
They're not doing too badly?
No. I mean, there are very few rare fungi, anyway, that
Right.
that people would go and look for to eat.
Now this is a different type again,
A different
is it?
species again. This is a younger version of it.
Right.
Now it's in the Milkcap family, which
Right.
all exude a milk. If you cut the cap, most of them exude a
Yeah.
white milk, but this one doesn't. This one has got carrot-coloured milk,
Right.
which. if
And
I
when you
cut
say
that-
milk, what do you mean?
Well, it's got a liquid, a juice in it. Let's get this one. This will probably be easy. And the fact that it exudes this orange milk is the thing that really kind of gives this one away.
Oh, so that's how you know it, and then in fact it's all right to eat.
Yeah, I mean if you did that to those
it's
funnel
quite
caps,
complicated, isn't it, Peter? I mean it's not the sort of thing that you would want to come out and do lightly, really.
No,
is
you
it?
couldn't.
Kind
No,
of
I think most
foraging
people
around looking for fungi. I mean, they from the top, a lot of them look very similar,
They
and
do.
B, the actual thing you're looking for, the characteristic that sort of makes it poisonous or not poisonous, are quite subtle, aren't they?
It can be. I mean, to beginners, it's quite daunting. So if you're going to come out and do it on your own, then you really ought to just get to know one species, perhaps a season.
Right. It's not a good idea, really, is it, to just sort of see a fungi and give it a go? Is it?
Oh no, it's certainly not a good idea to come out and just pick fungi.
Just give it a go.
No.
No, you have to know what you're doing.
You
and
do.
here's a fine little fungi. What's going on with that one? What do you think?
Well, this is in a fairly large family. I don't know if you can just see that there.
You see that little tiny
It's in a
fungi?
family called in a genus called Mycena. If you put that in a frying pan, it would disappear.
Right.
So it's not worth bothering with.
Not worth trying to eat that. Too small. Yeah. Okay, and over here we had some fungi.
Yeah, we've got some.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
There's loads of them.
Now this is quite a good one to show people because it's in a family which contains Fly agaric, which most people know, which is the red one with the white spots.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And it also contains the death cap, which is the most poisonous fungus that we've got in this country. This one is called the blusher. It's Amanita rufescens is its Latin name. It's called the blusher because it bruises pinkish after a while. I mean, you can see it's got a slightly pinkish hue on the stem there. But if this was handled quite a lot, it would start to have pinkish, finger marks where I've been handling it.
Right.
But you can see it's an Amanita. Most Amanitas in this country, anyway, have got pure white gills.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
It's
And
very
they've got a
white there.
ring, just like the common field mushroom has a ring.
Yes, round the stem.
Yeah, like a kind of
so they're
skirt.
flat round
Yeah.
the stem. Okay.
But the Amanitas have nearly always got this creamy white or pure white gill, whereas the common fungi, the mushrooms that field mushrooms, have got pinky brown gills, and their spores are dark brown. So when the spores drop, the gills turn to a dark brown. These ones, the spores are always white, so the gills will remain white.
Right.
So you get to know the Amanitas because they're poisonous members of the family. This one
Okay, so this
is edible, said to be edible if it's cooked well,
Right.
but it's poisonous if eaten raw.
Right. Okay.
But
so
it's certainly one that I wouldn't recommend anybody try in case they get it mixed up with something like Panthercap, which is brown like this, but doesn't blush. It has a white stem. And Panthercap is one that could kill you. This is called the grey coral fungus. And there, I think we've got I don't know if that's another grey one or that might be the white one, but there are two
that's
different.
quite light in comparison,
yeah.
isn't it?
And it looks slightly different in shape. Let's have a. Yeah, it is. Yeah, we've got two different species. You can see the colour
Oh, right.
difference now.
Peter, there are fungi everywhere. So there's a little tiny orange one here.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about this one, aren't we?
Yeah. Right, well I'm just going to cut this one. And this is another one that people see quite a lot, and I've certainly been out on forage with people, and they think sometimes this is a mushroom, the common mushroom. It's slightly mushroom coloured, but the distinctive feature on the underside is the gills are a different colour. They're kind of a clay brown rather than the typical mushroom pinky brown colour, and there's no ring.
Right, okay, there's no flap around
And
the
you can
stalk.
feel how slimy that one is, can't you?
It is slimy, yeah.
Yeah, in damp weather that one gets very, very slimy. It's called poison pie.
So
Because
don't eat it.
yeah, it's meant to look like uncooked pie crust.
Oh,
colour,
right.
Which it does.
Right.
Yeah. But if you ate that, it would really give you severe,
Gut rot.
yeah,
Not a good
bad
idea.
pains in the stomach. Yeah.
Okay. Why are some mushrooms poisonous and others are edible?
Well, I mean, all mushrooms and toadstool have got various chemicals and things inside them, and some have got fairly powerful toxins, which
is that to put us off eating them, do you think?
well, it puts us off eating. It puts the English.
Something's had a little bit of a gnaw at this though, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I mean,
been eating
slugs
that?
and snails and small rodents will go for them. And,
Okay, and You've got your knife there, your
Yeah.
special mushroom
Oh,
knife,
yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah. If you're collecting them anyway, you should never yank them out of the ground, because that will well, it won't destroy, but it will damage the part of the fungus that you can't see, the mycorrhiza that's in the soil or in the leaf litter. So doing that will actually damage the fungus, and it means that it won't be that healthy another year.
Right. Okay.
So by cutting them, you're not damaging in that part. The
Now
other
how
thing, sorry, one last thing is,
Yeah.
when you do cut them, always check to see what the underside's like. Don't take ones home that haven't opened up properly,
Right.
because it's more difficult to to identify them when they're not fully open.
And also they haven't released their spores,
That's
have they
it,
then?
yeah.
So, okay. And if people want to come on a fungal foray with you, Peter, are there any more going on this year?
This year, I think that's probably about it now.
When the frost starts to come,
Yeah.
it's all over, isn't it, for
Yeah.
another year?
Yeah, but they normally start at the very end of September and they go right through October.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, Peter, for taking us on a fungal foray on my mushrooms.
Collecting them anyway, you should never yank them out of the ground, because that will well, it won't destroy, but it will damage the part of the fungus that you can't see, the mycorrhiza that's in the soil or in the leaf litter. So doing that will actually damage the fungus, and it means that it won't be that healthy another year.
Right. Okay.
So by cutting them, you're not damaging in that part. The
Now
other
how
thing, sorry, one last thing is,
Yeah.
when you do cut them, always check to see what the underside's like. Don't take ones home that haven't opened up properly,
Right.
because it's more difficult to to identify them when they're not fully open.
And also they haven't released their spores,
That's
have they
it,
then?
yeah.
So, okay. And if people want to come on a fungal foray with you, Peter, are there any more going on this year?
This year, I think that's probably about it now.
When the frost starts to come,
Yeah.
it's all over, isn't it, for
Yeah.
another year?
Yeah, but they normally start at the very end of September and they go right through October.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, Peter, for taking us on a fungal foray on my mushrooms.